right. And I need everybody to understand this is the most important fact about politics today in America. It is not left versus right. That is an old way of thinking. It is populist versus establishment. And the establishment loses every time now.
Crystal Ball, I had you on the show recently and you declared that Kamala Harris would win all 7 swing states. It would seem your crystal ball, if you don't mind me saying this, is a little cracked because Trump is currently won 4 of the 7 and leading the other 3. Your response?
Yeah, no doubt about it. What I got wrong in this election is that I thought, even though I've been critiquing the Democratic Party, certainly since the Bernie Sanders movement, I thought that January 6th and the overturning of Roe versus Wade and Trump's manifestly authoritarian tendencies, as evidenced by the people who were closest with him in the White House, I thought it would be enough to overcome those problems on the Democratic side. And I was absolutely dead wrong. So a couple of problems specifically with Kamala's campaign. I think there was way too much spending time with Liz Cheney, spending time with Mark Cuban, way too little time spending time with Bernie Sanders, spending time with Sean Fain, who's the president of the UAW. And in general, Piers, something I agreed with from your intro is the last guy who did the best with the coalition that is fleeing the Democratic Party right now is Bernie Sanders. And Democrats did everything they possibly could to block him from not only ascending to, be the Democratic nominee, but to block him from having any significant influence in the party. He offered a competing vision that could actually combat the fascism that you see with Donald Trump. Just talking about fascism, talking about how bad Donald Trump is clearly not enough to get the job done. And so we have the results that we have.
Yeah, Dan Crenshaw, I spoke to President Trump this morning, just rang him on his phone, and to my surprise, he picked up. And I think even he was a bit taken aback by the sheer scale of this victory. It's not now beyond the realms of fantasy that he could win the White House, the Republicans win the Senate, they win the House of Representatives, and he may end up winning the popular vote as well as Electoral College. An absolute clean sweep. And you can only conclude from that this is an utter repudiation of all the attack lines that his opponents have been trying on him for the past year. And I would include in that the weaponization of the legal system against Trump, the attempts to take his life from 2 assassination attempts and so on. You put it all together, and this is a gigantic 2 fingers from the American electorate to those who said Trump can't be president again.
Yeah, it really is. It surprised a lot of us. Look, if you've been asking me for predictions for a while now, and I've said every single time, if you make me make a prediction, I'm going to say it's a clean sweep, but it's close. And turns out, I was right, but I was also wrong. I didn't think he was going to win every swing state, and now he's looking like he's going to win every swing state. Looks like we're probably going to have a majority of about 7 in the House. A small improvement over 4. The Senate's looking way better than we thought it was going to look. I'm actually I'm so frustrated with ourselves because we should have 2 Republican seats in Arizona. We should have 2 Republican seats in Georgia. That would put us at 60 votes. We would have a real majority for the first time in, maybe ever. It really is something. And responding to what Krystal said, I just think it's funny because my greatest fear as a Republican is that when we lose, we learn the wrong lessons. And the wrong lessons as a Republican, speaking just as a Republican, she can have her opinions as a Democrat, but my fears have always been that when we lose, we all get together, we do an internal firing squad, and we say it's because we weren't right-wing enough, and we alienated our rightest of the right voters. That is the wrong message. Because the way we won this time and the way we keep majorities in the House, it's those majority makers, it's those moderates, Trump won women and white women in this election. He did massive improvements in the Latino and black voters. You don't do that by running to the right. You do that by constantly hitting the same message about the economy and immigration and just this common sense stuff that people are really worried about. And so, look, don't get me wrong, I kind of hope Democrats learn the wrong lessons here because I'd like to keep winning. But I'd be curious for her to unpack that a little bit more because
Yeah, let me quickly,
you know when Democrats were
let me just
crushing
quickly
it?
respond.
Really quick. When Democrats were crushing Republicans was in the 90s. That was in the 90s, and they were a very different party back then. That's all I'll say.
Yeah, well, the world was very different, and neoliberalism was absolutely ascendant there then. Now we're in a post-neoliberal world. And so what I'm not talking about a shift to the left. I'm talking about a shift top versus bottom. You know, Trump has his version of fake populism. He's got his villains. He's got his scapegoats, immigrants, cultural elites. Bernie Sanders, when he ran in the Occupy movement, when they were ascendant, talked about the 1%, talked about the millionaires and billionaires, talked about corporate greed, talked about unfettered capitalism. That's the shift that I'm talking about. And we know that it was effective because that Bernie to Trump pipeline, that was real. People who were voting for Bernie Sanders, who were Latinos, who were working class, who were Joe Rogan bros, who were Joe Rogan himself, have now, when faced with the choice between Trumpism and neoliberalism, chosen Trumpism. When faced with the choice between Trumpism and Bernie Sanders left populism, chose left populism every time.
Okay, let me bring in Cenk, because Cenk, I'm going to be honest with you.
I get that analysis a little bit better, yeah.
Yeah, Cenk, I woke up this morning and I actually thought of you. I felt sorry for you, because I thought, how on earth are you going to come on my show now, given the sheer scale of this devastating victory and devastating defeat for the Democrats? I mean, it is hard to imagine a worse morning to be Cenk Uygur. So, how are you?
I'm great. I come on your show with the same swagger I always do. So the reality, Piers, is unfortunately, I was right all along. I told you that Joe Biden was feeble and ridiculous. And I told you they should have done a real convention and a real primary, and they didn't do it. They should have picked their strongest candidate. Now, look, Krystal's 100% right. And I need everybody to understand this is the most important fact about politics today in America. It is not left versus right. That is an old way of thinking. It is populist versus establishment. And the establishment loses every time now. And the reason that they can't see it is because everyone on TV, everyone in the Democratic leadership is the establishment. So they can't look at themselves in the mirror and go, oh, it turns out people hate me. They need to go in a populist direction. It is super obvious. They'll probably never see it. Next time around, the main thing is we've got to reach the Democratic voters, go around mainstream media who lie to them 24/7. Right now, this morning, they're doing copium on MSNBC, talking about how white women ruined this for them or different demographic groups didn't show up. It's absurd. It's absurd. You lost because you're a bunch of elitists and you don't even realize it.
But I would also say, Cenk, and I'm sorry to single you out, but you are the person here who's done a lot of this on my show. I do think the constant over-demonization of Trump, when people were calling him a fascist, a neo-Nazi, the new Hitler, all this, I kept warning people on the left, this is going to backfire. Most average Americans do not think Trump is the new Hitler. They did not see in his first term of office a fascist at work. Yes, they thought January 6th was awful. We all did. And it should never have happened. And that's more playing, to be honest with you, to Trump's refusal to ever accept losing. You know, I just watched the movie about him that came out, and it's crystal clear. This has always been in his DNA. Never accept defeat. And that was a consequence of that mindset. But he wasn't a fascist in his first term. Yes, he says stuff he shoots from the hip verbally all the time. And he says stuff which sometimes sounds awful. But he didn't actually behave like a fascist. And so when you tell the American people constantly, rather than telling us what Kamala Harris might do with the country, which she was completely incapable of articulating, by the way, and ducked the press, didn't do press conferences, blah, blah, blah. But when you constantly try and frame Trump, you know, I was at the Madison Square Garden rally, first one I'd been to. That was not a Nazi rally. It had a load of Jewish people sitting in the crowd. It had Israel banners all around the sides. It had a Holocaust survivor at the front. So when you try and frame it, as some on the left did, as a neo-Nazi rally and go back as MSNBC did, to a rally in 1939 in Madison Square Garden that was a neo-Nazi rally, you are losing the plot. It is not the way to beat Trump. It is the way to fuel Trump and to get him to be more popular. Do you think I was right?
So you have to draw an important distinction here. In fact, two distinctions. So first of all, not only did I never call him a neo-Nazi or Hitler, I called him fascist, and there is a giant difference. But last night, Representative Steve Cohen from Tennessee was on the Young Turks as we were doing election coverage, and he called him Hitler, and I said, don't do that. Because Hitler killed 13 million people. We're not anywhere near there. I mean, this morning, Joy Reid's talking about how Florida's a fascist state. What are you talking about? I'm going to go into Miami a little bit later in this week. It's ridiculous. But in terms of why I call him a fascist and why I think it's right, Piers, is because he tried to overturn the election in 2020, and he did fake elector plot. He planned a coup, etc. And that's what fascists do. But it doesn't matter because he won this election fair and square. So we're back to democracy. Right. I'm happy to say clean slate. Let's see what he does. But I think, unfortunately, I'm going to be proven right about him as well. Because, yes, he's a much better fake populist, and the Democrats still don't get it. They're bragging about how they raised $1 billion and how all the corporate CEOs are on their side and all the Cheneys are on their side. That is the worst strategy you could possibly imagine. It's not that Trump won this nearly as much as the Democrats lost this election. They don't get it. Stop bragging about how CEOs love you and how you raised $1 billion, and that is corruption defined. Now, when it comes to Trump, look, guys, let's all hope that I'm wrong, but my guess is you're all going to be deeply disappointed. He's going to rob the place blind. Elon's going to rob the place blind. They're not real populists. They're going to give corporate tax cuts. They're going to do all the things that Democrats do. They're just going to be more clever about it. Their number one priority is going to be giant corporate tax cuts and corporate deregulation.